Hi, my name is Emily, and today I will present an active learning model for seagrass detection in remote sensing imagery. The presentation will consist of the following sections. First, we'll give an introduction. So seagrass is similar to grass that grows in shallow water or close to these waters, as shown in these diagrams. And what seagrass can do is stabilize the sea bottom, maintain water quality, reduce carbon dioxide emission, provide an ecosystem for marine animals, and additionally support local economies by facilitating fish populations for the fishing industry. However, right now, seagrass is rapidly diminishing due to human-induced things like coastal developments, overfishing, herring of seagrass populations by boat anchors and propellers, and acidification, as well as natural disasters. Because seagrass is so important to the ecosystem, there's a need to monitor seagrass distribution over time for a given region as it reduces. The traditional way to monitor seagrass is manual mapping or drawing the boundaries by hand. Seagrass distribution can be patchy, meaning that there are many sparse sections of seagrass, or it can be dense and continuous. There's another approach called physics-based approach. So each sensory image contains multiple channels based upon the physics of the seagrass, for example, how much light it can reflect. Then we can design some rules and form some specific channels to do seagrass detection. However, this is still not deep learning training, so it isn't robust. Over the recent years, machine learning-based methods have been developed. So some typical models are support vector machine, logistic regression, and random forest. And our team has actually developed in the past couple of years a deep convolutional neural network. So here's a figure of how the DCNN works. Essentially, it uses a small patch of size 5 by 5 of the image as input. And then this DCNN uses convolutions and fully connected layers to form classification for this central pixel to one of these 5 classes. And this method is very accurate and effective, but it has some limitations that will be discussed later. Now we will discuss the existing challenges and motivations. So we have introduced the traditional seagrass detection methods, but those require on-site visits to collect data, and it can be quite time-consuming. The machine learning approaches we mentioned require a lot of labeled data samples in order to train the models, because there are a lot of parameters in the model. Another limitation for the existing machine learning methods is that they are patch-based, and the patches are too small, so it typically doesn't generalize across location or time. So because these limitations exist, in this paper, we want to increase the input image patch size, so it includes more context info, which enables the machine learning models to generalize across time. We did not tackle the issue of generalizing cross-location, as this is still an ongoing project. So if this is successful, the trained model will be able to be directly applied for seagrass detection at the same location, but from a different time without fine-tuning. So new labeled data samples aren't needed. Because we want to increase patch size, the patchwise DCNN isn't useful anymore. So we want to utilize a semantic segmentation model. To illustrate this idea, here is HRNet, and this uses a very large patch of a picture or the whole image as input. Then it will go through multiple layers of convolution and pooling, and at the end, it will reproduce the output at the same size of the input, but the output is a segmentation. However, one challenge here is that to train the segmentation model, an input-output pair is needed. So that requires a lot of work because each pixel in the image needs to be labeled for ground truth. So we use an active learning method, which consists of 2 steps. The first step is inputting an expert labeled image into the DCNN and applying the DCNN to the whole image to produce a classified image. We use the DCNN produced map to train a segmentation model, and then we use HRNet rather than UNet because it is better. This image is used as a training pair to train the HRNet. So this is the structure of HRNet, which has some downsampling by pooling patch and some high resolution patches, and the output is the same size as the input. So we have the training image here as ground truth. We don't use the whole image, we use a large patch, typically 64 by 64. So we randomly select many 64 by 64 patches from the image pair to train HRNet for seagrass detection. We also augmented data to simulate the T effect. So we increased the training data size, so the training process is more robust. It allows for more accuracy because with a small sample of data, this variation created by the T effect may not exist in that sample, but it does exist in general. So adding the augmentation will allow us to account for any possibility of variation in new images made by the T effect. There are also a set of hyperparameters: input image patch size, number of training epochs, and number of training samples. Each parameter was optimized separately, and in each experiment, other parameters were set in a way that the model would get roughly the same number of weight updates, so there is a fair comparison of the parameters. Next, our dataset. Our dataset consists of time series images taken at St. Joseph's Bay in Florida by the Landsat 8 satellite with 11 bands with their specifications, and the first time point is October 10th, 2013. We define region of interest at just the first time point. Using this region of interest, we train a DCNN and then use the DCNN to produce a ground truth to train the HRNet and apply it at different time points for seagrass detection. Now I will talk about the results. So this first image is of the defined regions of interest. And then picture A is the classification map produced by the patchwise model DCNN. For picture B, so first we used picture A as the ground truth for training HRNet. After training HRNet, we apply it to the image to create a prediction, which is picture B. Picture C shows the agreement between picture A and picture B on seagrass distribution, which matches very well, meaning that the active learning is effective. Next, we will focus on parameter optimization. So first we show that input patch size is best at 64 by 64, which has a high accuracy while also not being too large or too small. Then when optimizing number of samples per class, we fix the image size to 64 by 64 and tested different sample sizes. We found that after 2,000 samples, the overall accuracy was stabilized, so we chose 2,000 samples per class. With image size and samples per class fixed, we looked at the number of epochs, which showed that 150 epochs got the best overall accuracy. Now, these are the results for seagrass detection in image series. So this image here, image A, is the original image collected at the same location, but on October 2nd, 2016, about 3 years after the first time point. Then B shows the result with using just DCNN to get a classification map. Then we used HRNet trained on the first time point and applied it to this different time point, and the result is C. An expert verified that the portion shown in this red box is deep sea. So C is more accurate in classifying this area than B. And this is because when we look at a much larger region in HRNet with more context, and if the HRNet patch contains multiple categories, even with time points with 3-year gaps, the model can figure out where the different categories are. However, with just DCNN only uses very small patches of 5 by 5, and many of those 5 by 5 patches contain seagrass. But because of the T effect, the pixel value will shift to a different level, so the model will make a mistake. Our project is still a work in progress, so we show just one case of data augmentation working, where we first used pixel value shift to produce 1,000 samples, and the original 20 samples per class were duplicated to 1,000 as well to balance training. Then after training, we got a 91.68% accuracy, whereas without data augmentation, we got an accuracy of 88.81%. So there was a 2.5 improvement. So this shows promise in this method. In conclusion, we created an active learning strategy developed To successfully train a semantic segmentation model, HRNet, for seagrass detection. The hyperparameters of the model were optimized to improve the detection performance. A customized data augmentation method was developed to simulate the T effect in seawater and improve training with limited data. And finally, HRNet successfully performed seagrass detection across time points. Thank you.